So Microsoft, they had a really big weekend, which is continuing actually into this week with the never-ending, ongoing Activision saga. Of course, on Friday, the FTC was denied their requested emergency TRO. Now, that happened as soon as I posted my previous video. I saw some jokes in the comments that my video was outdated the second that I posted, but I was actually thrilled. The judges panel made the logical decision, and the FTC has once again lost under Lena Khan's leadership. No big surprise there. She continues to be absolutely awful. So now we're really at the point where it feels like this acquisition is pretty much all but done, except that there is still one problem that needs to be dealt with, being, of course, the CMA. There's been that big question. Will Microsoft close over them, or instead, will they wait it out and extend their deadline with Activision? Well, we did learn a little bit more about what's going on with all of that today, thanks to the CAT hearing, so we will briefly cover that, as well as Sony finally caving to Microsoft. Old Jimbo, Mr. Jim Ryan, finally decided to put some ink to that much talked about Call of Duty contract. And while that's great news in some ways, this is also actually a really bad look for Sony, and I will explain why here in just a little bit. So, we do have a lot to go over today, and with that, let's just go and get right into this, starting off with the CMA situation. The CAT did hold a half-day hearing between them, Microsoft, and the CMA about them pausing their upcoming trial and why the CAT should actually grant this request. Right away, you could tell that the judge was more than just a little bit irritated by the CMA reversing course last minute in what he described as unfortunate timing. The CMA just somehow coincidentally decided to work with Microsoft once again as the FTC was denied a preliminary injunction. Nothing too suspicious about this. I guess we'll just go ahead and call that ironic timing. Whatever, I suppose. But all in all, after 5 long hours, what you need to know here is that the CAT conditionally gave Microsoft and the CMA more time to negotiate a restructured deal. Now, a few requirements do need to be met by Thursday for a full-on approval, but it seems to me that everybody is on the same page here, including the judge. It was repeatedly suggested that Microsoft and the CMA have a good understanding in how to proceed with an expedited investigation that will result in an approval. Now, this really, I would say, is both good news and bad news. The good thing here is, from all indications, the CMA and Microsoft have things worked out. Unless the CMA is acting out of bad faith. Who knows about all that? But as long as they're acting in good faith here, this is great news for Microsoft. They, as in the CMA and Microsoft, even told the judge, we wouldn't be here if we didn't believe we can proceed. So it does sound like it's more of a when will this deal finalize rather than if it will. That right there is the good news. However, there's also that downside. Timing, of course, is of the essence, as a lot of you already probably are aware of. Microsoft and Activision will need to extend their July 18th deadline if they don't complete this buyout by tomorrow, and it sounds like that's kind of where we're heading here. They'll need to extend their deadline to accommodate this CMA investigation, though. And I know this question has popped up a lot today. Does this jeopardize the acquisition if they decide not to complete it tomorrow? Is there any chance that Activision will walk away if Microsoft doesn't close over the CMA? And no, I don't think that this poses any type of problem. If Activision theoretically walks away, their stock would plummet, and they would lose a lot more money than the $3 billion split-up fee that they would get from Microsoft. More so, and this is also important, this will be a short extension. The end is still near, it's just not going to necessarily be as immediate. Yeah, this situation isn't exactly ideal, and I can completely understand the frustration from gamers because, we have to wait through even more legal jargon when we probably shouldn't have to. We should not be in this situation, but the CMA will likely reach a conclusion in about 4 to 6 weeks. So yeah, it is annoying, absolutely, because the CMA has dragged their feet until the last minute, and they obviously messed up and are trying to save face right now. But as long as the wait isn't too long, and as long as they approve the buyout, then Microsoft, I'm sure, will be happy at the end of the day, and gamers ultimately will still get what they want. It just might not necessarily be as immediate. Another question, though, here is why would Microsoft go down this avenue? Well, this decision to give CMA more time, it is still preferable over a full-on CAT trial for them, which would take much longer. That would also cost them more money, and it also helps Microsoft keep a good relationship with the CMA in the future as they bring forth more acquisitions. They want that working, acting relationship. All in all, though, we should get a more clear answer of what will happen here in really the next 24 to 48 hours. Some kind of news will likely come tomorrow in some shape or form as that July 18th deadline is ending. So, let's just go ahead and see what happens tomorrow. Now, another big part of this buyout, though, quickly unraveled over the weekend because finally Sony has agreed to a Microsoft Activision contract, or actually, in this case, just a Call of Duty contract. That is the important part here because Sony played themselves. They absolutely played themselves here. As we all know, Microsoft offered Sony a contract back in 2022, and at the time, this included all existing Activision IP through 2027, as well as some other perks on top of that. Of course, it also included a 10-year contract for Call of Duty. So they were getting a lot with that original contract. It was a more than generous contract for the market leader Sony. But Jim Ryan's response to that was, I don't want your contract. I just want to block the deal. So that's what Sony's been trying to do. In a disingenuous attempt, they misled and lobbied regulators to fight for them. And now that these regulators seemingly have lost, Sony also lost their leverage against Microsoft, and in return, Sony has received a worse contract. I mean, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. That's pretty much what all of this boils down to. Instead of Sony getting a contract for all existing Activision IP, Sony now only gets Call of Duty for the next 10 years. So that means that Microsoft can freely keep future installments for IP like Crash Bandicoot, Spyro the Dragon, Diablo, Tony Hawk, etc., off of PlayStation if they so choose to. They're not obligated through contract to work with PlayStation to keep these IP on their consoles. So that is a big loss for PlayStation. I mean, if you think about it, both Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, they originated as PlayStation 1 exclusives, but here we are now, and there is a very real situation that Crash 5 and Spyro 4 could actually be Xbox console exclusives, or at the very least, they could just skip out on PlayStation. Now, that's still not necessarily a guarantee, but Microsoft, by contract, can do that if they so choose to, and that could have been avoided if Sony would have just simply worked with Microsoft in the first place. Instead, they chose to mislead regulators at every single turn. They made this acquisition unnecessarily difficult for Microsoft in a lot of ways, because let's be honest about things. Sony was never afraid that Call of Duty would be exclusive to Xbox, as they so claimed. They, as in Sony, knew from day one that Call of Duty would remain multi-platform. The fear has always been about Xbox Game Pass and consumers getting a more enticing option to play Call of Duty instead of paying Sony $70. This is a threat to their preferred business practice. That's what this has always been about. The fear consumers would transition to Xbox because of a more enticing option for consumers. Call of Duty exclusivity was always just an excuse to block this buyout. Ironically, though, Jim Ryan's decision to mislead regulators didn't exactly hurt Microsoft in the way that they were hoping for. Yeah, it made it more difficult for them, but this may have actually come back to bite them and his own console with a less favorable contract. Again, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Now, like I said before, though, Xbox has had a very busy weekend, and with a bit of a change of pace here, this also includes some big news for Xbox Live Gold, because in a bit of a shakeup, after 20 years of shaping the online subscription market, Microsoft has finally confirmed those long-running rumors and have decided to transition Xbox Live Gold into another Xbox Game Pass tier, one that actually sounds pretty good in comparison to what consumers have available to them right now. So this will all happen on September 14th when Xbox Live Gold will be rebranded to Xbox Game Pass Core. This will have the same pricing as Xbox Live Gold. You can either pay $10 a month or the much better option, $60 a year. This once again will come included with online gaming for paid games, though the big change here is the removal of Xbox Games with Gold, and as its replacement, subscribers will now get 25 plus Xbox Game Pass games. Now, Games with Gold has been terrible for years, and that might be a little bit of an understatement here. So this is actually a very welcome upgrade. It's essentially Xbox Game Pass Lite. You won't get the full catalog of Game Pass games, which is 100 plus at any given moment, but you'll at least get 25 plus, and this list will be updated 2 to 3 times a year. I mean, if we just look at the current list that they've revealed so far, it includes Among Us, Descenders, Dishonored 2, Doom Eternal, Fable Anniversary, Fallout 4, Fallout 76, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, Grounded, Halo 5, Halo Wars 2, Hellblade, Human Fall Flat, Inside, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Psychonauts 2, State of Decay 2, and The Elder Scrolls Online. I mean, this is actually a really good list of games, something that I haven't been able to say about games with gold in a very, very long time. And they did note that these titles will vary over time and by country. So some games might swap in and out just like other Xbox Game Pass tiers, but so long as they consistently include high-quality games like you're seeing here, this is a great deal. Certainly much better than games with gold. I feel like this is much better for that $60 price tag. It seems like it might be a little bit more worth it. Let me know what you all think about this, though. Do you like what they're doing with Xbox Game Pass Core, or would you like them to tweak it a little bit more? Let me know. Okay, so here's something else that I'd say is pretty big news. It might go a little bit more under the radar with everything that's happening with Xbox and Activision, but don't let that fool you, because I think this is big news as well. So what's happening here is that the EU, they just showed us how regulators can actually benefit consumers. Yeah, it's nice to hear one regulator actually cares about consumers. But what's happening here is that some new EU regulations are coming into effect for devices such as mobile phones and gaming handhelds that requires them to have a replaceable battery starting in 2027. Again, this is actually really big news that affects almost every single one of us in some shape or form. Most of us have phones, and by design, a lot of these companies, they prefer when consumers buy a completely new phone as their battery weakens over time, as opposed to simply changing the battery for less money. Well, if the EU gets their way, that will change for devices sold in the EU starting in 2027, which includes, yes, gaming consoles like the Nintendo Switch, the ROG Ally, and the Steam Deck. In the future, these platform holders will be required to make their batteries easily accessible and readily swappable. The EU stated, quote unquote, a portable battery shall be considered readily removable by the end user, where it can be removed from a product with the use of commercially available tools without requiring the use of specialized tools unless provided free of charge with the product. Now, keep in mind that this will only be for new devices released after 2027, so this likely won't affect the Nintendo Switch successor, as I'm still betting that will be a 2024 release. But in the far future, if Nintendo releases a new model for that console, a Switch OLED or Switch Lite-like device, it will then need those readily replaceable batteries. Same thing goes for Valve if they make a Steam Deck 2, Steam Deck 3, or whatever in the future that releases after 2027, or any phone for that matter. Now, the only thing about all this is while this is great for consumers, that's an easy win for us. Companies, however, they might try to push back in droves. These companies will also be required to collect used batteries from their own devices and are required to reuse some of those elements on new batteries. So a lot of these tech companies out there are probably going to be less than thrilled about this change, but this really is such a huge win for consumers. And frankly, I go so far as to say it's game-changing in a lot of ways. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day that we're asked you all. If you play paid online multiplayer games on Xbox, are you currently an Xbox Live Gold subscriber, or do you get online gaming through Xbox Game Pass Ultimate? And yeah, the vast majority here do prefer Game Pass Ultimate. I mean, it really is such an amazing deal with everything wrapped into one. I think it's the best deal in gaming, just period. I mean, you get console and PC Game Pass games as well as online gaming, and you even get cloud content as a little bit of a bonus. I myself am an Ultimate subscriber as well, which I am very satisfied with, especially now that I own the ROG Ally. Not only do I get to play my games on my Xbox Series X, but the ROG Ally and PC Game Pass, I mean, it's just such a good combination. But hey, I do understand that there's a lot of Xbox Live Gold subscribers out there as well. So I guess I'm just kind of wondering, for those that are only subscribed to Xbox Live Gold, I'd like to hear from you all. Are you happy with the new direction of Xbox Game Pass Core? Personally, I think it sounds great, but I want to hear from you subscribers specifically, so let me know. Anyways, that's it for this episode. But if you like the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.